Hello. Is that the rugby season starting? I believe it is. I believe the rugby season has commenced. It is dropped kickoff time once again. My name is Nick Wasiliev. You know who I am. You know why you're here. And you know what? We're starting with some wholesome content this week. We've got some wholesome, happy content. We were supposed to have Josh Murphy join us this evening. Unfortunately, some other stuff has kind of fallen by the wayside there. Probably Queensland time zones here in Newcastle. It affects him very badly. But I have got, of course, the trusty Nathan Williamson by our side. And Natho, it's time for wholesome content this evening. It's very wholesome. Tell us.
It's lovely, isn't it? Like we're, 3 from 3 and just our big, beautiful number 8, Harry Wilson, re-signing 4 more years. It's just wonderful stuff, isn't it? Like, I recommend read his quotes. Yes, this is a cheap plug to go rugby.com.au or reds.rugby. If you don't want to give me the click, that's fine. Don't care. But seriously, like, this is a man that is so passionate about this game and so passionate about it. Like, basically saying, like, what would I be if I was the Australian captain and trying to leave to go overseas and shopping myself around? I'm going to set the example. I'm signing not only to 2027, I'm signing beyond that. I think he's the first one to go to 2029. So, like, huge news. Sort of one that seems to sort of come out of nowhere as well, but like a great boost on the eve of the Reds' first game that we have the Harry Wilson lockdown for a considerable amount of time. The longest contract I've seen in Australian rugby outside of Sully in a long time. It's great.
Probably Hoops. Didn't Hoops get locked down for like a 5-year contract like before he finally retired? It was like the $1 million a year something ridiculous. It was a massive one.
Like that,
and then back in the days when it was on Fox, like years, and that gives you a sense of how far back it is. But yeah,
when we had money. When we had money.
Oh, the good old days. But yeah, I think those comments and stuff that he made, that his heart was only ever set in one place, and it really gives a good sense as to, I think clearly last year must have really rubbed off on these players, because to hear that he's keen. I know that there's been and also I kind of had a sense it was coming from comments that I'd been seeing of him. His heart was always really set on staying in Australian rugby, and clearly he's like, the fight's here. We've got to turn this ship around. And seeing as he's been such an excellent captain in that regard, I think he's setting a fine example as our skipper. I reckon it couldn't be better news, to be honest.
Good times keep rolling. What can you say?
Yeah, so we have a round of Super Rugby to talk about. Super Rugby Pacific, round 1. It happened, Nathan. In fact, did happen. I know you and I are both used to it, because you and I are the only people doing casualty wards at the moment. Is there somebody else doing casualty wards?
I don't know. I think there's probably 1 or 2 other people. I don't know. I know it's on Super Rugby. I think there's some kind of tall, handsome person doing that as well. I don't know who. I don't know. Some mysterious, like, there's no byline, so I guess we'll never know. But yeah, I think we're the only 2.
Yeah, it does feel like that. But, it's been a strange start to the season, because, even before coming in, it was noted how many players were injured coming out of New Zealand. Like, the Crusaders had 14 players down. After this round, the Canes have got something like 12. Of course, the Force have had a couple of issues with a couple of players in the front row going out due to injury. But aside from that, it's been a pretty phenomenal opening weekend. Australian teams, of course, as mentioned, going 3 from 3. If you didn't know, if you were under a rock, probably the first time Australia has 3-0 rather. Yeah, three from 3. 3 games in three wins in a row. But yeah, it is perfect. But like, first time I think we've done that against complete opposition since 2018, and maybe the first time we've done it. I think Sean Maloney was like the first time we've done it ever in an opening round. Like, it was actually a bit of a...
You know the last time? 2001.
No. Fuck off.
2001. And what happened then? It's a sign.
We won. The Brumbies won that year. The Brumbies won that year.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking something bigger. Something much bigger against a certain red team.
A certain red team came to Australia. That's true. Yeah.
The stars are aligning. The stars are aligning.
Yeah. But let's get into these games. We're literally just going to talk straight. We're going to, we like to keep it fast and loose. But literally, this is the pod where we say how good. That's literally what we do. How good? And first of all, Nathan, the first question is, and I know it kills me to say it, but I know it'll light up your eyes. How good are the Tars?
By the way, before we get the comments, I just want to put this out there. Yes, we know it's probably going to come crashing down in like round 2 or round 3. Let us enjoy this. We don't get much enjoyment when it comes to rugby. But like the 7th one in Perth, we've just signed Harry Wilson. We're 3 from 3. No Australian teams lost. Let us have this. And you know what? Yeah. Me and you, Nick, we've been in this business for a while now. You know, we are seasoned veterans of the Wallabies and Australian rugby cycle, and we know that it's going to come crashing down. We've accepted that. So let us have this. Let us enjoy this. And let's start with the Waratahs because, that wasn't by far wasn't a 10 out of 10 Waratahs performance. But God, did they fight hard.
No.
God, did they fight hard. Like, I think I think there's been a lot of criticism of how they played, and rightly so, but the way they won is what should excite people. You had a backline full of Wallabies. The last 3 or 4 tries, they were barely involved. It was all the grinding forwards. It was all those, unsung heroes like your Sifa and Monos that really just sort of drove their way home. That line-out move, exceptional. Set up by 4 or 5 beforehand, where they just, Charlie Gamble takes off the side, swings around, drags it in. It almost felt like they caught the Highlanders just in like second motion. They just kind of followed the flow. Didn't even realize that the ball had gone out the back till it was way too late. And I think this is what's different in the Waratahs this year. If you look at a guy like Sifa Mona, dropped 26 kilos over pre-season. It's a massive amount. But they're fit now. They're now a team that can fight for 80 minutes. And I'll make the prediction now. You'll hear it here first. Yutsuli, Kellaway, Tupou, Leota, all these big names were the signing. McKellar were all these signings that were hailed as the most important thing to New South Wales rugby. That's not going to be their most important signing this year. You know who is? Tom Carter. Tom Carter. Seriously, the women's 7 side have been one of the best in the world for a big reason why is their fitness. Tom Carter has got in that place and got them firing. He has seriously worked those guys to elite levels, which we didn't have before in terms of Waratahs. Teams that would fall off, teams that would die from that moment. He's got them back to a level alongside Dan McKellar's standards where they're going to be competitive for 80 minutes, no matter who they're against. And I think, the Highlanders is a start, but trust me, when you see it just keep developing and those skills come along and you get a bit more of a balanced game plan, mate, this is going to be a team that's going to be exciting to watch, and I think it's going to be down to their fitness and the way they approach this game. But the good old crunning that TC is known for. So I'm excited for this year. Still on that 1-0 high that I know at least can't be broken for another 8 days since eight more days than we're recording. So it's great.
You've got the bye this weekend, so you can enjoy it a little bit more. But I must agree. Like I had kind of a bit of a moment when I was watching this game on Friday night, and thinking back to when we were at, I think it was the opening game when the Waratahs faced the Brumbies, and the Brumbies won. Like I think it was when there was like 31-25 or something, and it was in front of the 26,000. It was like it was the start to DC's second year, and I think it's probably the game where everything started to really go wrong for DC. Doing the physicality comparison was really noticeable, and you've been watching the Waratahs socials. They've been flogging the shit out of each other. I mean, I've been seeing those indoor tackle socials that they've been doing.
The Friday morning sessions have been elite. Like they've found a gym, I think, in like Alexandria or somewhere where it's basically just like a MMA/wrestling gym, and they beat the living daylights out of each other. Yeah,
they beat the shit out of each other, and I could tell that was going to have a big impact immediately because, my God, they were like, I was almost to the point where I was worried, like, is there going to be like a massive injury toll when the Waratahs start, because they were beating the snot out of each other, which you need to do.
So it's funny. I was speaking to Tristan Riley in the pre-season, and it's the same dude was worked the Tigers as well, and he was like, "Mate, the sessions were just crazy back then. I thought I got rid of him, and then I rocked up first thing for the session, saw his face, and I was just like, shit. God, not this guy again. It's like a ghost in my past. Like they've got the right people in that club right now that just, in terms of high performance, that are taking them to a next level, and that showed. Like, look at the hits that they're being put on. I think the one two-player when Gleason put on like 20 or 30th minutes, something like that, to dislodge a ball. Adamson coming off the bench, smacked the bloke with one of his few involvements. Like, that's now the standard the Waratahs, and that's a really exciting thing, that this standard has been built in their forwards and the defense, which gives the time of that attack and those, the ridiculous weapons they have to gel and come together. And like, when it does, good luck.
Yeah. And I should also mention, like, there's been a lot of reaction of people being like disappointed, and everyone was like, well, this is the weakest Kiwi side. And to my headspace, whenever I thought of that, I was like, I kind of thought it was so much, as it always is, it's always so much more complicated than that. Yes, the Highlanders are technically New Zealand's weakest side. I think we're in agreement on that. There's only 2 All Blacks, but that side has played together for a long, long time. There are more baby blacks in that side than any other side. That means the Highlanders are going to be in very good stead. They've got one of the best coaches in Jamie that the competition has ever had in Jamie Joseph. They are not a bad team at all. They're a very, very good team, and I thought it was going to be a very, very close match to begin with anyway. Even with the Waratahs, many, many stars, this game was always going to be clunky. It was always going to be an ugly performance a little bit, because you're still figuring out those combinations, and you're coming up against a side, I will add, who have some of the most set combinations, because they've been under Clark Demity. They haven't had a lot of changes. Only a couple of stars have left. They've been able to keep most of that squad, and I see the Highlanders becoming one of the top Kiwi sides in the next 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah, they're going to be up there.
The Highlanders are basically like, if you ever played Football Manager, and it's just like you just stash all these young kids and you just let them develop, and you might suck for the first year. You might be mid-tail for the second, but that third and fourth one, you're amazing. And I think that's what they will be. Like, they're a team built for 27, 28, and that's dangerous. Like, there's a bunch of young kids with a lot of pace, and still with some incredible talent that can just come on and change a game, like a Fakatava, like Jimmy and I know I'm going to mess up the last name. I'm not going to say it. Tomoki. You know who I mean. Like, him in the midfield. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of quality players in there still. Like, you give that team 18 to 24 months, they're going to be a real contender. They're going to be a real threat. So, and like McKellar put it best sort of today and after the game, what wins you round 1 isn't going to win you round 10 or round 11. Like, the most important thing was for them to get a W. And that's what they did.
Yes.
Tick.
Yep.
We move on to the next week. If they had another week under the belt, learning combinations, getting together, particularly those Wallaby boys, and yet they're going to be a whole lot better for it come Fiji as well. So, like, again, never complain after a win. I will never apologize for a win. Simple.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be positive about, and again, everyone show a bit more respect to the Landers. I reckon they're a much tougher team than folks give them credit for. I think even if you're winning games, even when you're not playing at your best, that's good signs ahead. So I reckon Tars should be happy with that. Take the W and move forward. And it's so good that you guys have got such a fucking good start to the season. My God, I looked at that opening couple of weeks, just went, you pricks, you absolute pricks.
Like, it makes them important to keep winning now. You've got to. This is the time for them to build momentum. It's time to bank wins, and they've done it first up. So let's keep it going.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next. We'll move on to the next game. Of course, that game was over in Suva, which was the Brumbies getting up over the Fijian Drua. I'm not going to mince words. How good are the Brumbies? I did not think we were going to win this one. Not to say that, obviously the Drua, even with, a brand new coach, bunch of new players coming back, even a bunch of new international talent that's come back from overseas from playing in France and stuff like that. But you can't throw down that Fiji factor. And while the Drua's record in Suva is a little bit more spotty than it is at that bloody fortress that is Lautoka, you're still playing in Fiji, and it is hard to win there at the best of times. And yet, with so many Wallaby stars missing, the Brumbies did it. They just hung in there and did really, really well.
God damn the balls on Bernie Larkham. Holy Jesus.
What a risk. He said calculated risk, and it paid off big time.
Like, I think this also puts in the context of the Waratahs pre-season trials as well, because everyone looked at the Brumby side and went, how you had all the stars in the world, Waratahs. How did you draw to that? And then that Brumby side then went on and kicked on the Force, and everyone's like, how did that Force team do that? Like, no, this is actually just the Brumby side that's really good. They complement each other perfectly. Like, you just have so many young kids in that program that have been there for 18 minutes. Those are 18 minutes, a bit more than that. 18 months to 24 months that have that continuity, that, know what it's like to be a Brumby. And they thrive when they are the underdogs. They thrive when they are the misfits in an environment. And, hey, that's what we saw on the weekend. It was an incredible performance from some of those guys that just stepped up and delivered. No more than Luke Reimer. I mean, goodness me. That last 20 minutes, I don't think I've seen a number 7 perform better. I think it's fair to say he single-handedly won him that game.
Oh, yes. No doubt.
Am I wrong?
I mean, yeah, no, you're not wrong. But I think it's the case of kind of the rising tide lifting all ships in that regard as well. Like he set the standard and everyone sort of followed because, I thought that the Brumbies had done quite well to get themselves into that position to win it. And then Karavalehu, who's just an absolute gun of a player, scored in the 61st minute and Muntz converted, and you kind of thought, all right, maybe it's now we're in that kind of back end stage, and then out of nowhere, Reimer goes and suddenly produces that outrageous performance, and it encouraged everyone else. It definitely answered the question of, because I was just terrified about where Bobby V, the influence of Bobby V, was gonna come from. And lo and behold, I had nothing to worry about because Reimer is an absolute gun. But not only that, I mean, it kind of came down back to Brumbies' strategies and fundamentals. The players they choose to pick, and the strategy that they take with those playing into those natural players' skill sets and talents. They pick the way they pick their players and the way they manage those players is just insanely good. And that, I think, is the secret to why the Brumbies have done so well compared to a lot of Australian sides. There's always the case of, teams trying to find their identity. Of course, I think that's very different now, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But the Brumbies, they know their identity. They know all of that sort of stuff. Like that is that's not even, it's not even just a prerequisite. It's just an assumption at this point. And it's more about executing that sort of stuff, which means compared to other Australian sides, they're starting on the front foot so much. Like that's why they feel like they're eons ahead of the other Australian sides up until this point, because they're starting on the front foot in that regard. But what just really impressed me here was just, they've got depth. Like they've got real depth. I thought the Reds were the team to watch in terms of depth because they've got the 19 Wallabies in their squad, but no, turns out Bernie had some real depth here.
Got some tricks up his sleeve. I mean, you can throwing guys like Caden Pritchard straight into the mold in the last 10, 15 minutes. Untested kidney thrives. Austin Anderson, I thought, was very solid for his first start. Even Tualima coming on, first game for club, impressed. Photo Acres, a great second sort of tight head to have. Particularly the context of him getting him. Like, they had a bunch of injuries in the front row and kind of put the call out, and he starts first game and thrives. And you then have a lot of guys that kind of fell off the radar a little bit. I mean, Billy Pollard's probably the best example of that. Like, we forget he finished the year in the Wallabies 23 as the hooker. Like, he was the replacement and he, offers so much to a team as well. So, I said it after the game and I stick by it. A lot of teams like to try and have this mantle of, we want to be Australia's best club. The Brumbies don't need to say it. They are. They keep winning games. They're the ones that keep going the furthest. Until a team can beat them, until a team can do what they're doing, they're simply lapping the field, in my opinion, when it comes to their efforts and their performances. So it's just a perfect way to start the season. Like, Stephen Larkham threw it all on red 18, hoping for a jackpot, and he got it. And that's an incredible way for them to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that there are still things that they need to address, of course, as it is with the start of the season. But I think it's fair to say, of the 3 Australian teams that played this weekend, they were by far the most clinical. They were by far the most accurate. And also, particularly considering the environment, they were in the most hostile environment. I would argue that was the hardest game to win for the Australian sides this weekend. Probably without little argument in regards to the others, but they executed it, and it definitely bodes well. I mean, they've got a very tough run. I mean, of course, there's the Force this weekend, but then afterwards they're off to New Zealand for probably two of the hardest away games you can have in the Blues and the Chiefs in back-to-back weeks. Like, that's brutal. That is a brutal opening 4 weeks to the competition. So I'm expecting, at this point, taking those wins, the gold. So I'm very excited to see where they go from here, and particularly with a couple of stars coming back this weekend. It's clear they're going to try and really unload those Wallabies and really focus on that Chiefs and Blues games, because those are the two teams that they lost to last year. Those are the only two teams that could knock the Brumbies off. So they clearly have a point to prove there.
Oh, absolutely. And now you get this Fiji game, you can be happy if say results go how expected and they beat the Force. If they're 2-2, they're probably pretty happy with how they start the season. If they're 3-1, they're not title favourites, but certainly up there as title contenders. Like,
you beat a Chiefs in Hamilton or a Blues at Eden Park. That's a different conversation entirely.
So it's this is just the perfect start to the season. Like, and you like, for their sake, they're going to, write Ikitau, Kale, Valetini back next week, but like bring Frost, Alatoa, and Slipper back into a side refreshed after they missed the Fiji. Like, it was a special win in special circumstances that, again, needs to be celebrated.
Absolutely. Our final game, our final how good. I thought, honestly, considering the weekend that we had, I think it was up there with one of the best opening weekends of footy we had. But in terms of a single solitary moment, like you could boil it down to a single moment that probably not the best game, but in terms of the single moment that blew everyone away, that Ben Donaldson try in Perth in the 84th minute, like, Jesus Christ. I don't think I've shouted at a TV that hard in a long time. Because, I mean, it's there on Twitter, clear as day. You can go and see my Twitter. I was convinced the Force were done. With 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go, I was convinced they were. No, see, here's the thing. Like, you think I like humble pie. I love being proven wrong. I love being proven wrong. It's the best because, like, what the fuck do I know? What the fuck do you know? We're 144 episodes into this podcast, and I was convinced that the Force were done. And lo and behold, first try to Dylan Peach, and then out of with a great conversion from the sideline by Donaldson that seriously goes underappreciated. And then out of nowhere, they pull together this insane performance against a Moana Pacific side who I want to add actually were very good. I thought they played a really good game, and genuinely, they should have won it. They were the better team for the vast majority of the match. They were the better team for the vast majority of the match. They deserved to win that game. They were all over the Force's scrum. The Force's scrum in the second half was a fucking disaster. It was so bad, like penalty after penalty. And then Robertson getting sent to the bin and players going left, right, and center. It felt like an absolute disaster. And almost a dangerous repeat of the opening round last year where they lost a whole bunch of players against the Canes. But fuck, where do we even start with this one?
I want to start on one point you make. Like, I'm going to back you up on your take, because a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that aged well, that aged terrible." What do you think we'd rather be right about? Our stupid little take, or watching a win like that? Like, if I have to write, the Wallabies are dead and they win for them to win, I will do that in blood if I have to. I don't give a shit. Like, I will do it if it means if I have to jinx and that happens. But that Ben Donaldson try is amazing. And like a point that you sort of missed there as well. He did that on a busted ankle.
Yeah, he did.
Greg Jennings carried the team in his back. Like, He did that ankle 25 minutes in, 25 minutes ago on the most innocuous incident. Like, he just stepped on guard and bash it. Again, great to see him back in Super Rugby as well. Like, he just looks like a calm, experienced head now. Like, he just looks like that guy that comes down to third grade and just the game's at half speed for him. He's just sort of sitting back and just like, yeah, what do I need to do now? All right, cool, boom, through it. He then carries on, and you're saying you're yelling at TV. I was the complete opposite. I was kind of resigned to the fact. So when he made the break and was kind of sprinting off, my reaction was, oh Jesus! Oh wait, hang on a minute. Well, they're gonna win this. What? What do you mean? Like, it was a wonderful finish to the game. And again, I absolutely recommend go to the Forces socials. I think it's on their Instagram. It might be on everything else, but definitely Instagram. There is a split up that they do of it with Donaldson's try and a training move that they do, and it's near identical. And
really,
if you look at, recommend it. It's such well done to see how just that process comes together. And I think that's Ben's strengths. That he is a running 10. He's someone who's had moderate success at fullback in the past because of that, because he can take a line on. And for 26 phases into an attack, for him to be confident enough and have the energy to say, all right, I'm going to take a line on and just take a gap. Not only that, ignore Harry Potter on the right, who would have scored comfortably. And thank God he had enough pace to get past the scrum. I was either the scrum half or like a replacement forward coming across. Because if he didn't, Jesus Christ, it's on the Gold Coast all over again. If you remember that 2-on-1. Like,
yeah, I don't want to talk about that. We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about it. Actually, I shouldn't even mention his name. Can you just like beep that?
Yeah, we'll redact that. We'll redact
beep
that.
His name.
Isn't that the rule? That's the rule now. We redact him now. That's the rules.
We redact him.
Yeah,
amazing. I like the way that he sort of closed out that game. And honestly, that's the difference in recruiting as well. Like, Cron and the Western Force have put time into getting quality players over there. They invest in Donaldson. I think he played for the Wallabies. I'm trying to, again, years blend together, but definitely someone who hadn't was Dylan Peach by the time. So they go and sign him, and he makes the break that sets it up. A typical Peach try. Set play where he, off the scrum, where he just comes back in and beats 3 people. Definitely who they didn't have before, Nick White, the bully through to Peach to then set up Marley Pierce earlier in the day. Like,
ball of the round. That was outrageous. I just looked at that and just thought, fuck off. Like, that was also like 3/4. If you see like from the angle, the other angle, like where they did the replay, that was like a 3/4 of the length chuck across the field. And Peach caught it at a run. Insane.
But that's what the Force are building over there. And again, news we didn't even talk on, but getting someone like a Liam McDonald in as a coaching consultant, that's going to be amazing. Like, there's all of a sudden, it's starting to come together at the Force. And yes, while they were written off, and like compare their roster dev to the rest of the Australian sides, and you can see why. There's serious quality on that side, and it's really exciting to see them actually be able to close out a game and actually get a result like this. So, it's a credit to what they're building over there, and it's sort of this was sort of 2 years in the making. The challenge now is start winning away, because I think the last time they won away was 2023. I think they said 2013. It's not that long. 2023. I think it was a Thursday game against Moana. So like that's how long ago it was. Like, we were dealing with COVID games the last time they won a away game. So like I didn't know. No, it's COVID games.
Yeah, it was COVID.
I'm doubting
it was
I'm
COVID.
doubting
Yeah,
myself.
it was a COVID affected game, and I think they played. It was technically a Moana Pacifica home game, but they played at Leichhardt.
No, I think it was at Auckland. I'm pretty sure it was at Mount Smart. It
was at Mount Smart. It was at Mount Smart. Yeah.
And then they backed it up. They backed it up and went to Perth like 4 days later. I think either beat the Highlanders or Hurricanes. I think they beat the.
It was Hurricanes.
Yeah, they beat the Hurricanes and then just missed out in the finals because the Rebels couldn't get a bonus. I think the Rebels couldn't deny the Highlanders a bonus point. Something like that. I don't know. This is my niche knowledge right here. I think this could be all wrong, but I don't know. It sounds all right, so I'm going with it. Anyway, what we're talking about. Force, great win. It sets up a really good clash on Saturday against the Brumbies. I think you need the Force also to be strong just because of how many primetime games they have this year. I think they've got the most comfortably by any team in terms of those 7:30 free-to-air games. So if they're still going, like it makes those a lot of those Australian derbies. So it makes those games a bit more exciting and a bit more on the line for them. So I think having them, one from a bit of confidence, like that's going to be a big thing for them. It's now how do you manage the travel that's going to come with it, which is going to be their big issue.
Yeah. Well, also that, I think Cronny kind of mentioned it in the lead up to the start of the season. There was a lot of talk about, I think, because once coming back under Tim Sampson, they had a lot of work to do to build up that program again after they kind of were readmitted back into Super Rugby, and that in terms of the high performance was kind of when Cron came in, they were like, this high performance is not where it needs to be. And now they've had 2 years of that, and now I've noticed them putting in the infrastructure of we're going to be here for the long haul, and we're building here with the intention of, no, we actually want to win a title. And we actually are putting our money where our mouth is here. I will say that coming into this match, I thought that the Force were severely undercooked. I thought, looking at the trial, how they were looking, the two Poopert and HJH out for the season is an awful start. Feels like there's a curse over there when it comes to their props getting injured before the season starts. But thank God they have a lot of good backup options there. And then I wouldn't say that this game won me over, to be honest. I think that there is still a lot of questions to be answered. I think Cron quite rightly wasn't very happy with that game and wasn't very happy with that result, and yet they still won.
Yeah,
and that is, but that's the right sort of problem you want to have. That's in like if you are looking at that performance and you're going, "Fuck, we can be better than this," but you still won a game that really you shouldn't have won. That is, you're on the right track. You are on the right track with that. And God, I will say, I think Moana Pacifica is going to be a much harder team to beat this year as well. I think Savia's influence is huge. I think Tana Umanga has really impressed me as the coach there. I think this is probably the best, even though they've only got the 4 or 5 wins under the belt in his first year and a bit in charge. This is the best coach side that he's managed, in my opinion, from his time as a coach. And the identity that they've really carved out. And I'm really excited to see what Moana has got in store in the coming, for this coming season, because they look like a great side. If this is kind of the standard to set.
They've recruited very well, and having a guy like Cairo and Tamo Falau on the wing there, like that just adds the X factor you need.
He's insanely fast.
So quick. And I think Patafilo in the midfield, the centers, I think it's come from Samoan sevens. There's some quality pieces in that side. Also, quickly, it was 2022, the Force did that. You don't come here for facts being correct. Like, we were close enough. That's better than what you usually do, so be happy. I kid. But now, back to the point. There's, you add Sani Havili, who's done, won some things with the Crusaders, and a couple more experienced heads like you will have Havili, Garden Bash that we got him before. Like, there's a bit more quality in this side that just keeps improving. I think they're just 2 or 3 paces away. I think if the influence of Artie is enough just to get a couple of those big name Pacifica players to join them, if you can even get Pone Farmasili firing again, like just another element they need, they're just missing to really be competitive and take that step up where you are competing with those sort of sides that are going to be fighting for the 6th or that sort of middle ranking, middle position on the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what a way to finish off the round with a game like that. But sticking with Moana for a minute, because they head to Suncorp this weekend, and of course we've got to talk about the Reds. But of course we can't talk with a how good necessarily. Though their European tour, obviously they clean swept that. They put bloody 80 on Bristol. They put
that was
away
barely a Bristol. I'm sorry, that was like a bunch of uni students they just gave blue and white jersey to and went, "Hey, you want to call yourself a bear?" No, not that type of bear, a Bristol bear. Get in the side. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, even then, like technically they're a professional outfit, and flocking a professional outfit by 80 points ain't nothing.
That's true.
But to give you a sense of sticking with the point of how I said that I thought the Brumbies are kind of one of the most settled side with that established identity that isn't even up for question, and this felt like they felt like the only Australian team. I disagree now. I think the Reds are there as well, in that regard, under Les Kiss. They have 9 players out through the injury, which they've announced today, including a bunch of Wallabies. Lukan Salakaia-Loto, Hodgman's out, Jeffrey Tamunga Allen's out, Matt Gibbons out. I think there's one other high profile. Liam Wright is out. And
he's
yet,
back next week. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, when they run out on the field on Friday night, probably at the time you're listening to this, probably in a couple of hours, they've got 10 Wallabies in that starting side.
Off the bench.
Insane. And off the bench
as well. So there's a realistic chance. There is at their sort of strength this year, because you consider, so 5 of those players you have, say, Fezza comes in for Asiata, Nongor in for Mass Ludus, who I'm a big fan of. And anyone that can bench 202.5, yes, please get him in a side. And then Ryan Smith out for Salakaia-Loto. That's 13 out of 15, if my terrible math is correct. That's going to play for us. And Liam Wright in for Sarah Uru. That's 14 out of 15, with the one that isn't, Tim Ryan, who would have played last year. That's an international side. That's mental.
It's an international side.
That's crazy.
Their depth is fuck off good. Actually fuck off good. I reckon I think the Reds have the second highest number of international players in the side, the highest being the Drua, and that's literally because the vast majority of the Fijian side plays for the Drua. So, outrageous. So the question probably is a good place to finish up here, because, we started this whole pod with Harry Wilson, and we're going to, and it kind of feels nice to go full circle in that regard. How good do you think the Reds will be?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? The simple answer is very. I think they will. This is their year to take that next step. As you said, it's they've got the combinations that the Brumbies have, and they have the star power of the Waratahs. This is where, if they are serious, they need to make a title charge. And it's great to have Harry re-signed, but the reality is this could be the year where a couple of them move on, potentially. We don't know at this stage at the time. But this is what they've been building. This is what they were building ever since they were that team 5 or 6 years ago that Thorny just completely sort of overrode and trusted to these younger kids. They're now 25, 26, lived up to the potential that was hyped of him. Obviously, your Harry Wilson's being a Wallabies captain, your McWrights, your McDermotts. Tom Liner's now got a free shot at that 10 jersey to make it his own. This is now the time to strike. And I think they've got the weapons. I think they've got the sort of belief in themselves and the confidence in those tough games that they can really sort of contest with these Kiwi sides and make a deep run in the finals. I think it's got to start this week against Moana. They're almost in the territory of they need to put a score on a team just to remind people of how good they are. Because they sort of fall in that depth of, we haven't watched the Reds for a couple of weeks, with the Bristol trial being behind closed doors and the Ulster one being, I think cost a bit of money. I think it was more pay-per-view game. So you watch Moana and go, they were good. They might contest the Reds. No, this Reds team should be a lot better. And it's time for them to put a statement out and remind people, this team is fucking amazing. So that's what I'm looking forward to this week. And I'm really hoping this is the year for the Reds to all put it together and contest your Brumbies, contest your Chiefs and Blues, and really sort of go to that top echelon of the competition and stay there.
Before we move on, we do have a couple of final window dressing little points to end up before we wrap up the pod. First of all, we're going to come up with a left field question. Normally we do this in the middle of the pod or at the start of the pod, but I forgot. So we're going to move on. So we're putting it in here. And that is, of course, that earlier this week there was an announcement of the Autumn Nations Test matches. In addition to the Japan Test match on October 25th, which will be the first match of the new coach, whoever that may be. Matches have also been confirmed against England, Italy, Ireland, and France to call off to wrap up the year. And that brings the total number of Test matches for the Wallabies this year to 15, which is a lot. And on top of it, there's a hell of a lot riding on it because not only will there be a Lions series, a very, very difficult run in the Rugby Championship, and to be honest, a much more difficult Autumn Nations series than I was expecting. I was thinking like Italy and France and maybe in England or a Georgia or a Wales, but not another rematch with Ireland. Jesus Christ. They will be up. There will also be the conversation of World Cup seedings that will happen. It should be either in December or January after that, where those seedings get announced for World Cup 2027. Which for the Wallabies, of course, as a home World Cup, is very, very important. But the question we're asking is, with 15 tests, this is one courtesy of Natho, we're currently on Wallaby 990, who was the most recent Wallaby. Who was the most recent? Who was Wallaby 990, Natho?
Bit of Tane Edmund for Waratahs.
That one. Tane Edmund. That one. The question is, will Wallaby number 1000 be brought up in 2025? Do we think, will Wallaby number 1000 be brought up in 2025? Nathan Williamson, you posed this question. What is your answer?
I have a strong opinion, and that opinion has been made clear to a couple of people who have argued with this. Well, I'm in the minority, according to certain people and certain heads of high performances. I think we're not bringing up. I think it happens next year. I don't think it happens this year, and here's my reason why. It's exactly how you sort of put it. There is 18 Wallabies in that red side, 15 or so in the Waratahs, maybe slightly less. Same number in the Brumbies.
13. I think it's 13 Brumbies, 14 in the Tars, and I think like 14 or 15 in the Force. There's quite a few.
So there's about 60 there, not including people overseas. That's a lot of players that have already been capped. And yeah, the 15 test means we're going to use a lot of players. Maybe the most that a coach has ever used, particularly when you consider the new coach who comes in probably halfway through that allotment of games. So he's going to want to try new things. My rationale is, and my thought is why it's not going to happen, is any player that gets brought in is probably already capped. You look at the sort of depth of position. You look at the 7 position. You already have Carlo Zano capped. You have Reimer capped. You have McWright capped. If you want to bring Hoover back for last Arab, it's not going to happen. So there's 3 number 7s. There is 3 number 7s in specialist positions that are already capped. You then look at the number 8 position. You have Gleeson capped. You have Cal capped now. Valtini can go back there. Wilson can go back there. Your further back rowers, like your rights are capped. Like hooker, I think there's 4 or 5, and you go between, Fezler, Nasser, Pollard, Lonigan, Parecki, who we didn't even speak about, and sort of coming back into the fold, Pangramosa. So there's 6 hookers already that are capped. I think we've basically gone through a process of capping anybody that would have been available. And yeah, there's guys like your DeLutis's, your Tim Ryans of the world, maybe Felawali or Ryan Lonigan to get it, but I don't think there's 10 of those people. That's my opinion. But hey, 15 tests, you never know. But I am putting myself out there saying it won't happen until 2026. And if I'm going to have to name a name, I've said this as a bolter. I don't think it's going to happen now, given the result, what's happened in the past 12 months. But I've already said the number 1,000 will be Teddy Wilson. It's a bold pitch, but I'll call my shot.
I like it. I do. I think to myself, just for argument's sake, I'll form the majority for this podcast, because the big factor here that is going to influence that comes down to the actual coach who they pick. I don't think Schmidt's going to make a lot of changes, but I think if you have a situation similar to last year, which I think is very, very likely, that, for example, there will be an Australia 15 side also touring and playing a couple of matches. There'll be these 5 fixtures in the Autumn Nation series to wrap it up. And if this particular coach comes in with a vision and a particular approach, and it involves a slight tweaking and twisting of the system that they have under Schmidt, maybe that particular approach will warrant bringing some other players in. So I think, for argument's sake, it's only 10 caps. And the other factor that's also working against you, Nathan, is 15 tests in a year is a lot of tests.
Oh yeah.
taking into consideration
yes.
injury, taking into consideration sudden changes and approaches, taking into consideration the travel, taking into consideration Super Rugby things. Maybe there might be a massive casualty list that hits the Australian sides. We don't know. Fingers crossed it doesn't. But I think, considering how many Wallabies that Schmidt debuted last year, I think there is potential and opportunity for maybe one or two more debutants in the remaining Test matches that Schmidt has, the remaining 10 that he will have slated in the Rugby Championship and the Lions in that Fiji game. I reckon there might be one or two in there, maybe out of getting the cap down, getting an injury cover, something in that regard. And then it comes down to what that main coach does. I think it's possible to throw out as many debutants like that on a tour. Who would I want to be number 1,000? I mean, this is purely just wish fulfillment. How good would it be if DeLutis was number 1,000? How good.
The main man himself, the main Matt.
Yeah.
Love it.
I want him to be number 1,000. I want my beautiful Queensland Red to be number 1,000. Please, because he's been so touted and so discussed, and he looks amazing. So get my boy in.
And like, if you get to this part of the pod, go to our Twitter, and like, I'm sure Nick will leave a queue or a poll or something like that. Guess your 1,000th. See if someone can actually get it right. When we look back and this happened. I want to say it.
I wouldn't mind a junkyard dog either. I'll take a junkyard dog as well.
I think it happens before that. I think he's one of those 10.
You reckon he's one of those 10?
Yeah, I reckon he's one of the 10, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious who it is. But yeah, I think it's a good question. Yeah, let us know. Comment on the Twitter. Comment on the Twitter sphere. Who do you think will be Wallaby number 1,000? And do you think it'll be brought up in 2025? Tell us, let us know. So to finish off, there is in fact rugby that happens outside of Australia, Nathan. Did you know that? There is. And yeah, there is. It blew my mind when I found out about it. It really does. And of course, the big one is the Six Nations. And of course, at the time of us recording, only 2 rounds have been played. I think the breaks they restart this weekend, doesn't it? The break was just the weekend just gone, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. So we'll have round 3. We'll cross the halfway point this weekend. And I will say there's so many questions that you can dissect about this Six Nations. Maybe we ask for a quick 2 cents on what we think about the 2025 Six Nations so far. I mean, Ireland are the only team undefeated. Of course, England pulled off that big surprise win over France and looked really progressed under Steve Borthwick since wasn't a very good Autumn Nations series that they had. Of course, losing to the Wallabies at Twickenham and a whole bunch of other games as well. I feel like we should probably talk about the elephant in the room with our 2 cents on it, but I'll throw it to you.
I'll go for a sentence for each. Ireland, probably unbackable favourites now. French, England, the fuck happened there? England, the fuck happened there? Scotland, yikes! Like that was there for the win until they bonked heads. Italy,
didn't they?
Italy, aggressive pasta noises.
Oh yeah, God, I love Italy.
And Wales, holy fucking shit, God.
Yeah,
basket case, absolutely basket case. I'll take a couple more sentences for Wales. They are cooked. Like they are. What I don't know. Like it's one of those situations where everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong, and I have sympathy having gone through it in 2023. But this seems like a hell that they just are stuck in because they keep they're stuck almost like being them stuck in the Six Nations, hurting them even more because they just can't get that winnable game to build momentum.
This is worse. I think this is worse than the Wallabies in 2023.
Oh yeah, definitely. They've found a new hell.
Yeah,
it goes lower. It has a basement.
I mean, we've talked about it a little bit in podcast near the end of last year, but I know we talked about how Squidge, I kind of mentioned that I've been keeping an eye on Squidge, who's been doing fantastic pieces. He always does great pieces of content, but of course, as a Welsh rugby fan, he's particularly interested in the state of things in Welsh rugby. And it sounds to me like from the top down, the issues in Welsh rugby actually make Australian rugby seem functional, and that blows my fucking mind. Like the contracting issues, the issues of players getting not being able to get paid, the whole disagreements they've had around with unions and stuff like that, the underperformance of so many of the provincial sides. At least we've got your Reds and your Brumbies players and stuff to look forward to. And I think this kind of goes back to a point Drennan mentioned where he said, look, don't worry about Australia. You guys will be fine. You've got a World Cup, you've got a Lions tour, you've got 2 World Cups rather to look forward to. You've got yes, the situation with the Rebels is really bad, and of course you've got other codes to come up against, and which adds to further issues. But you've got plenty of stuff coming down the pipeline, at least that can force you to raise your standards, and you have to deliver. Like there's something to aim for and a target to reach. Seeing Wales fall to a 14th consecutive loss, in Rome, with someone Rowan Gatland is the best coach they've ever had. Statistically, he got them to world number 1, like in 2019. Like that's not up for debate. He's got a bloody gate named after him in Cardiff, and he's now suddenly has to walk away and resign, and all of what is going on? Like I don't know where this next win's going to come for them. I don't know where it's going to come.
Their Six Nations, their Autumn schedule is much easier as well. Like, they haven't exactly given themselves a cakewalk. Like, it is insane what they're going to have to deal with on top of somehow having to wrestle back momentum in the Six Nations. So, start with Argentina, just one of the most red-hot, deadliest sides out there right now. Then there's this little side called New Zealand. They're pretty good. But hey, if they're not good enough for you, Wales can do one better. The week afterwards, they're playing South Africa. Fucking hell. That is...
Where's this next win going to come from? Are we going to see 20?
I don't know the rest of the Welsh schedule, and they may have scheduled some easy games in July or something like that while the majority of the side hasn't been picked for the Six Nations, and they can go beat up on some other nations. Actually, you know what they have? They've scheduled 2 games against Japan, so they should win at least one of those. So that should break the streak, hopefully. Because again, they're gonna have a lot of players available.
Yeah, they can have. Yeah,
it's gonna be Dewey Lake, Jack Morgan, and maybe that's it.
Imagine if they lose.
Maybe James
if they lose those games against. Imagine if they lose those games against Eddie Jones's Japan, and Eddie Jones's Japan are not red hot right now. I mean, even Japanese rugby think Eddie is not doing a good enough job. Isn't he on review or something? It's like
something like that. But their ranking points are 0.8 difference right now. This is what counts as the same game for them, as a equal competition. It's wild.
Yeah, but I think it says enough that as a result of their loss in Rome, by the way, to an Italian side who I think should have beaten them by more. Than 22-15. Like the scoreline flattered Wales, and it's not an accurate reflection of how much the Azzurri are improving. But Georgia is now ranked higher than Wales is. They're the lowest ranked. They're ranked number 7. They're ranked the 7th in Europe. They're
playing in the Six Nations. It's awesome. It's insane to think about.
I mean, of course they've got. I mean, on one sense, I think now that Gatland is gone, it effectively is a free hit. The rest of the Six Nations, because nobody is expecting them to win any of those games, and maybe they might salvage a surprise. They might catch Scotland napping or something like that, and hopefully they do, because I mean, just God, I'm lost for words. I'm really lost for words about it.
Think about it as well. If you're a Welsh fan, what game you reckon was going to be the one you were targeting, thinking you were going to win? Italy. Now all of a sudden you've got Ireland, Scotland, England. Jesus Christ, they're three very hard games, and I don't know their way out. I would say I'm not educated enough on Welsh rugby to say, oh, they've got this amazing 20s or program coming through. Or I know Scotland's is probably has a worse 20s program than them because they got relegated from World Champs. That's about it. But like, Jesus Christ, they need to find something quickly just to get some kind of hope back. Like, we were lucky. We got hope back almost instantly. We take that for granted because we were able to beat up on Wales.
Yeah.
But like,
Sorry,
God, they're just in deep shit.
They really are. I mean, how else do you put it? But yeah, it'll definitely be one to watch this weekend with the Six Nations getting back underway. And then finally to finish off, Natho, I mean, we'll probably cover it in a future podcast, but you went down to the Super Rugby Women's launch.
That's it.
Earlier a few days ago at North Sydney Oval. Looks like it'll be a really exciting series. If you guys haven't kept an eye on the trials, I strongly recommend you go check out some of the results. I've kind of correlated them all on the Raw. One of the big results was the fact that the Waratahs drew with Super Rugby or Bicky champions, the Blues, in Auckland during one of these trials, which if you haven't checked those games out, I strongly recommend you do if there's any sort of highlights or pieces out there.
It's a shame that it's not, but yeah, I mean, great result for the Tars. Like, I mean, it's so competitive as well. I love it. Like, you have the Force, they've signed a bunch of new players. Your Ash Masters, C. Smiths, Sarah Gambas of the world. Added real quality to that side. The Reds go off. They sign Lane Moork and Eva Kapani. And then, going to have sevens players available. Again, everyone will look to their trial loss to the Force. Look, something tells me the Reds will be fine this year. I just like a gut feeling that I have that they're going to be all good in terms of just their players coming in and, everything that comes in. I reckon they'll be fine. And more than that, competitive. And then you have the Brumbies who are, again, just, signed very good players just from international. That's what they do. They generally just bring in like international players to like fill the gap. Ella Ryan coming in is a great signing at scrum half, moving from 10. And then the Drua, like, they will cause havoc. That's what they do best. All chasing this Waratah side, which still has so much quality and so much ridiculous talent that it's not funny. So I'd like seriously get behind it this year, like particularly in a Wallaroos one. Like, if you're looking for the most in-depth coverage of it, between me and Nick, we will deliver it. Deliver you the actual coverage that you want, you crave. Because this is such a big year for in terms of World Cup, and I'm serious. Like, if the talent that comes through continues to develop over the next 6 to 9 months, along with those added sevens pieces, this is a team that can compete with the best at the World Cup, or best. Like, England might be a bit of a stretch. The rest of them, absolutely. That's just respect to England, how good they are. But like, this is a great time and great year for Australian rugby, and particularly women's game. So seriously, get behind it. We've been advocates on this podcast for years now. So yeah, we're not saying this with like lightly. This is probably the best year for the competition, and probably going to be the most competitive and exciting to watch. So if you're on the fence and you haven't watched it before, or you haven't watched it regularly, get behind it.
Yeah, no doubt. Like this, if you need any indication of the growth of the women's program, not just the fact that they won a title last year in the WXV and everything like that, and the growth of that program. I have to do a season preview, Nathan. I have to write a season preview, and I have to put a team in last. And I don't know which team to put. I genuinely, at the time of me recording this podcast, I have to drop in a season preview next week, and I don't know which team to put last because even the teams that you'd think would traditionally be down the bottom, previously, like say the Brumbies, and they've made finals the last 2 years. They've got 21 players returning from last year when they made semis, and they've got Andy Friend as a coach. Like, internationally qualified Andy Friend, coached in Ireland, seen as a Wallabies coach contender. Like,
one of the best coaches that's come out of Australia in the past decade and a bit. He's down.
Yeah, like, and the Force are recruiting like crazy, and the Reds have got some insane players, and the Tars have got talent coming out of their ears, and The Drua, the bloody Drua. I genuinely do not know how this season's going to play out. I genuinely, like, of course, everyone's chasing the Tars, but like, I genuinely think, here's my hot take, someone is, like, the Tars, apart from the only team that the Tars have lost to in Super Rugby Women so far is the Drua. That changes this year. Someone beats them.
Ooh.
Someone beats them.
It.
That's my call. I reckon someone beats them. I don't know who. My money would be on a Force or a Reds off the top of my head, but someone beats the Tars this year. That winning streak ends.
I like it. I like the call. I think you're right.
Don't know who it is, but anyway, we always say short and sweet, and here we are an hour later. Nathan Williamson, pleasure as always to talk rugby with you. Of course, we'll be back probably next week. We might do a Super Rugby Women's exclusive preview of some regard, or some discussion. We'll let you know, so, depending on how our systems go. But enjoy your rugby this weekend, guys. We'll catch you the next time round.